worldwide. Every weight class. It's Lewis Heaton. Whiskey Bynum. It's the Boxing Rush Hour Show, hosted by Abraham Gonzalez. You know what you came for? Yes, indeed. This where you come to get your info. Listen up. Other shows throwing the towel. It's the Boxing Rush Hour Show. Let's go. In the ring we throw hands, octagon elbows. Analytical, critical commentary is necessary. A bevy of opinions, we heavy on the winning. This podcast is to break down the pay-per-view. For boxing purists, you'll let this man through. We rise right, surprise sight at the prize fight. Hands taped up and gloves tied tight. Ring the bell, want some, get some. Let the chips pour where they may. Work the George Crumb.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to the Boxing Rush Hour Show. I have some exciting news. I'm thrilled to announce my partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join some of my favorite sportsbooks. With the packed boxing schedule coming up, there's no better time than now to get started. Head over to my dedicated page at signupexpert.com/fightsatw to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take your sports betting to the next level and show some love for my brand, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through my Sign Up Expert link. You can easily find it in the description below. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Boxing Rush Hour Show, fightsatw.com. My guest today is a super middleweight, 29 years old, ranked number 9 in the WBA, 21-0-1, 13 KOs out of Brooklyn, New York. His name is Junior Younan. What's going on?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Well.
All right. You got a fight coming up on with Star Boxing here in about another week or so on March 22nd. Before we get into that, talk to me a little bit about, for those that aren't familiar with New York and its surroundings, like a little bit about growing up in New York and getting into the boxing mix, which led to run-ins with guys like Paulie Malignaggi, Zab Judah, Danny Jacobs, Saddam Ali, etc.
Yeah, I feel like I grew up in a crazy era in boxing in New York. My dad trained Paulie for the Juan Diaz fights and Amir Khan and a couple other ones, and I grew up in the gym with Saddam and Danny and Curtis Stevens and a whole bunch of guys that made fireworks in New York. So I like to think I'm part of that group.
Yeah, no doubt. And up until 2024, you weren't too active. What was going on with your boxing career or life in general up until that point that you weren't as active as maybe you may have wanted to be?
So I was in a bad contract with the Roc Nation. They closed its doors and then they didn't give me a release. So I was stuck in that contract for 2 years after they shut down. Didn't get to fight, and then COVID happened, so it was another year, and I ended up fighting on Triller on the Jake Paul Ben Askren fight card, and won that, and then I don't know, for whatever reason I didn't get another fight until that next year, and then I fought on Danny Garcia versus Jose Benavidez. Got a first round knockout on that card against a good guy, and I thought it was going to start flowing again after that, and it didn't. So, I just, I sat on the shelf a little bit after that, and it was a weird time because I didn't, I was doing what I had to do, but I didn't really understand why, I wasn't, being called, and yeah, it was a weird time. So I ended up seeing my manager Roberto Diaz at the Garden. Well, he wasn't my manager yet. I saw him at the Garden at the Quigley and Berlanga fight, and I was like, man, he's known me since I was young, and I was like, man, I need to get some fights. He was like, you know what, I'm gonna be in touch. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna be in touch, and I was like, okay, cool. I didn't hear from him for a while, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just go get ready. I'm gonna come out here to Colorado. I'm gonna go get ready, and then uh, if a fight comes, I'll be prepared. And he just called me a random day while I was out here, um, and he was like, I'm gonna get you a fight in Cancun. I was like, he's like, we're gonna get you busy. I said, okay, cool. We fought in Cancun, and then the deal popped up with Joe, and the rest is history. I've been these past two fights, doing my thing, back in my
Now,
rhythm.
now for those that may not like really understand the economics behind it, during that time that you weren't fighting, you still had to, maintain a household, whether that's for yourself or family and stuff like that. So, like, how did you get by during those times when you weren't fighting?
Man, my family, my dad, is my biggest support system, and it wasn't easy, it wasn't easy. It's just a confusing time for me, you know. Thankfully, I'm not too bad with with the financial part of things. So, um, uh, I was able to sustain, but it was rough. It was rough.
Okay, all right. And then so you linked up with Joe Deguardia, Star Boxing, May 2024 is what it looks like. What made you go into that direction with Star, um, and 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 how has that been for you, given that you're coming from a really bad situation?
Well, I first I put into consideration that I would be busy again. A lot of times, a lot of these big promoters, they don't. You don't see your really good guys, fight too often. You know what I mean? Just because of dates and TV and all that stuff. So I just knew that I'd be active again, and that was what was most important to me. Um, and fighting back in New York. That's it was always a big thing for me. I don't think I've ever gone to distance in New York. It's just always something about fighting at home for me, and uh, yeah, those were my two main reasons, and Joe's made champions. Joe's made champions. From New York, and Joe Smith, Chris Algieri, and many others.
Yeah, that's what's up. All right. Listen, your father trains you. There's always that conversation about the father-son relationship when it comes to trainer and fighter, right? How is your situation with your father, um, being the trainer fighter and father-son situation? How is that for you guys? Because with everyone is different. You see all different versions of that, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And so, how is it a little bit with you guys, and are you able to have that definitive break between the gym and being, the family, father
You
son?
know, when I was younger, it was harder, for us to leave the gym and then separate the two. Yeah, it was difficult when I was younger, because I wouldn't always listen. I was hard headed, and I wasn't always living the perfect life that my dad wanted. But now as I got older, I focused up more. I focused up more. My attention is fully on the sport now, and um, we have a great relationship. It's just even if we do argue in the gym, we know how to we leave, and an hour later, he'll be sending me reels on Instagram. You know what I mean? So, it's just, it's we both know that the work is putting in. It's just sometimes we butt heads, but it's the dynamic.
That's what's up. That's what's up. All right. And you have you're in training camp in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Just kind of curious on what has taken you out to Colorado to get prepared for fights.
Um. Well, the first time I came out here was with Marcus Brown, when he got ready for Badu Jack. Um. and I saw the blueprint, and I knew that it was the right thing to do when you're getting to this point. You got to sacrifice and be away. As much as people think they could train at home and stay focused and shit, but it's you got to sacrifice, man. It's not about staying in your comfort zone. And you know I have a really good team out here. My strength and conditioning coach, General Lee, um, my PT Mac. I just got a great system out here, and it's been working. The
Yeah.
altitude is crazy, so
Yeah.
I come down in great shape, and I'm excited, man. A lot of work's been put in this past year and a half.
Yeah, the altitude is real. I remember going to Colorado for the first time and I stepped out of the airport and I walked for like 20 feet and I was out of breath. It's real.
Yeah. Springs, yeah, the Springs is a special place. It's the Olympic City. They have the
Yeah.
Olympic Center out here. And then we go up to Pikes Peak, which is even crazier. 11,000 feet. So
Wow.
we, yeah, we be working out here, man.
On March 22nd, you're going to be fighting Abel Mina, um, Star Boxing Rock and Fight 50 event. One of the notable names on his record is a split decision loss to Damian Sosa in 2021. Well, what do you know about him coming into this fight, and what are you kind of expecting without giving away too much?
Um, well, he has a draw against Shermeta. Um, and that was in Poland, so we both know what that means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so I can't sleep on this guy. If I let him, come in there and stink up the place, he's gonna do so. So I have to go in there and execute. He's he's not a slouch, man. This is a real fight, and it's kind of great, that we get to do it on Rock and Fights 50, which is pretty dope. And it's kind of crazy, how this all panned out, because this wasn't my card. This was Joe Smith's card, and he got sick, and I was obviously, I was in camp, and this is just a case of me, staying ready at this point in my career. So um, I'm excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited now. And it's this. I think he has a good enough record to where it bumps me up a few spots, maybe in the rankings, and we'll see where we go from there.
All right. And then what message you want to send out to the fans who are going to be there in attendance or who are going to be watching it? I think Star they have the streaming on their website going on. They have like Star TV or something.
Starboxing, yeah,
Yeah.
Starboxing.tv.
Yeah.
For the people that's gonna be there, man, enjoy the night, man. It's gonna be fireworks. It's definitely, I'm gonna go in there and put on a show like I've been doing, and don't blink.
Yeah, and lastly, you've called out plenty of fighters here in the last few months. It seems like you really want that and Billy fight, a Christian and Billy fight, but a Berlanga fight in New York. Now that sounds really good. And then you also have Caleb Plant who Caleb Plant has always said, on social media, he's not a hard guy to find. All you have to do is send the contract. Will you get one of these guys in 2025?
Um, Listen, whoever will take the fight, we could do it. Like Tank said, ain't no safety on this Glock. Ain't no safety on this Glock. I'm ready for whatever, man. If I go to Canada taking Billy, I'll go wherever to fight Caleb. If Edgar wants to do it, we could do it in the Garden. You know, I'm I'm here, bro. It's everybody gets their opportunity, and me and Edgar, we're good friends, but at the end of the day, he got his opportunity. I think it's my time. You know, um,
Yeah.
everybody's here making money. You know, buying diamonds, doing all these things. I think it's my turn.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, listen, Junior, I appreciate your time. I want to wish you the best of luck on your fight on the 22nd, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you.
It's the Boxing Rush Hour Show.